there's been a massive decline in trust in institutions. And a lot of the public goods that have been produced over the last century have been provided by institutions. And that was great to start off with because they were new things. They were things that people didn't have access to before. They provided them with clean water, or schools, everything like that. But over time, basically, alternatives have become more visible and people have seen that actually the way that institutions do things isn't necessarily the only way. And certainly also you've seen over time the number of mistakes that institutions make go up. So people start to have in their consciousness, actually, these institutions might not be the best way of doing things. And what you've seen with the internet is that people can create their own ways of doing things very cheaply, very quickly, without much pain at all. Whereas if you were to try and do the same thing, try and create the same thing as an institution or through an institution, it'd just be a nightmare. And people wouldn't have any faith in it at the end anyway. So I think that's what we're seeing is a decline in trust in formal institutions for good reasons, but also then the new tools growing up, which people can use so easily that it just becomes, the obvious option to take.
How do organisations need to adapt to make the most of what's available now?
Just try things out. It's just be experimental and be willing to take risks. I mean, to be honest, it can't get much worse in terms of the way that people think about some institutions. And so just try things out in a little way. Don't spend millions of pounds on a website. Never ever spend millions of pounds on a website. Just try something out. Just try out the tools that are already there. Start getting feedback from your users based on how they're using it. Adapt it, do it again. Adapt it, do it again. And there's some great examples of government departments who've started blogging and started getting much better feedback from people about how they're seen and potentially what they should do on particular policy areas. And that cost them nothing compared to average sort of government budgets for IT and things. And that's the way to do it, is just try it out and see what happens. And don't believe that doing something once means that you're going to have to keep on doing it forever. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to adapt, probably month by month. It's a different mindset for institutions to get into, but it's pretty rewarding one when you see institutions playing in this space. You could do it. You could do it. There is this possibility of using these tools to do massive things, which is completely unexplored at the moment. And so what we're trying to do is, produce, a kind of competitor education system, an alternative education system that's organised outside of the state, but that is much more in tune with the needs of individuals. You could do that potentially with with health. You could do that with transport, all these kinds of things. And so there is a threat there to public policy and to government. I don't actually think that it's going to be as simple as one wins or one doesn't. I think there'll be a process of adaptation. But I have this feeling that government isn't going to adapt as quickly as business has to these tools. And that's a problem. And they need to really get going on that because there are real issues around kind of accountability, competence, all those kinds of things, which need to be answered.